Addison Moore, and this is the Leadership Think Tank Conversations with Women in the Cannabis Industry. Today we are talking about pivoting. Everyone at some point in their life has to pivot. This can be initiated by changes in business, in careers, and oftentimes a linchpin for women is a change in their personal life. And that initiates a pivot across business, across career. So in the cannabis industry, boy, pivoting happens often and quickly. It'd be unrealistic to talk about preparing financially for pivots, especially with our current economic situation. You cannot prepare, but you can be prepared mentally and emotionally, because we all know if your head is not in the game, nothing's going to happen for you. So, Alex, what's your thoughts on pivoting and how to navigate it on an emotional and mental level?
So my outlook on pivoting starts from my upbringing. My mom always instilled in us to always have a plan for a plan for a plan, right? So unconsciously, I'm always just planning for things. I don't want to say I'm like a negative answer. Oh, what if this goes wrong? But that's just a thought process that I always have, no matter what. So it's kind of easy for me to pivot, make a change, adapt, kind of go with the flow because shit happen. So just to always be prepared, be ready for what's finna go down and what's finna happen and things like that. Like right now, I got to pivot right now because my team they're finna come in here and count some money, so it's gonna get really loud. So I got to pivot and make a change. Just kind of make it flow, kind of roll with it, so that it's a natural thing. You know what I'm saying? So pivoting should just happen. It should. I got you, Jay. It should just happen. It shouldn't affect what you're doing. Just kind of go with the flow. And if something goes wrong, don't like be obvious about it. Nobody will know. Just let it just be a natural thing. Pivoting. Life happens. Things change. Just roll with it. That's my thoughts on it.
Absolutely.
And does that work?
Yeah, it works. From look, you couldn't even tell I switched offices, could you?
Well, actually, we could, sweetie, but that's okay.
But it works. I mean, sometimes it doesn't, but I still just kind of keep a positive attitude about it. I try not to let mistakes or anything kind of affect me too much because how I react to that is gonna determine what happens next. So I can only
Mhm.
control me. So how I pivot and how I roll, that's how it goes, and just kind of move forward from there.
I agree with you 100%. 100%.
Okay.
I
um, Okay, so Alex, in regards to since you're in the cannabis industry, but you also coach the Las Vegas Silver Stars. So within the team and that competitiveness, having to win games, are there pivots?
Of course. The whole time. I mean, so in a game, you could have like your starting quarterback can go down, like within the first play of the game, or not even that. Let's say kickoff happens, right? Boop, they kick the ball. Your team receives the ball. You're running. Your starting running back is actually the returner for the kickoff, and they get smacked. Now they're hurt. They can't come for the next round. You got to have a plan. You got to be ready to throw somebody in, and those people got to be ready for it. Sometimes they may not be, but that's what we're there for, to coach them up and kind of make them feel positive about what's going to happen. It's change. So you got to be ready for that. The same thing at work. So like somebody calls out, we got to have a plan. We got to be ready to slide and deploy to fill that gap till somebody else comes in. Or when customers come in for product and it's not the product they thought, we got to be able to pivot, be able to maybe sell them something else or suggest something different or go find that product for them in the back. So for me, it's always kind of being ready, always being on go. Know who I have on my team, be it my football team or my work team, what they can do, strengths and weaknesses, and being able to make those calls in the moment.
Good. So, Angie, you've worked in a variety of areas in the cannabis industry. What's your thoughts on pivoting in the cannabis industry? And from your experiences, what kind of advice do you have for women to be able to deal with this emotionally?
Okay, well, we'll start with the pivot. So back before height actually mattered, I did play basketball because I am currently still 5 foot nothing. Have not grown an inch since, but it was always you had 1 foot grounded, and you were allowed to move the other foot and kind of look around and see where you can go. So for other women, I say first make sure you want to play basketball.
Okay.
You know what I mean? If you're like, no, this sucks. I want to play soccer. This just isn't for me. Just, get your ass out of the circle and, move on. But the beauty of the cannabis industry is it needs everything. It needs the CPAs, it needs, retail and the growers and, the processors. So there's, dozens of different ways you can go if one isn't servicing you. So I started at a clinic that did medical marijuana cards, which got me hooked, but in no way, shape, or form it was that where I wanted to be. That is not what my career was going to be. I wanted more interaction with the patients. Well, where do you get that? You go retail. And I've been doing this 16 years, and 10 of it was around the cannabis counter. And as we all do, some more gracefully than others, we get old, and retail is a son of a bitch. They're long days, they're long hours, they're physically, mentally, and emotionally draining. They can whoop your ass on a daily basis. And at some point, I realized I still love what I do, but I just can't physically do it anymore. So again, my foot is still in the industry, but I'm pivoting around to look to see, what I can take, what I've learned over the last 10, 12, 15 years, and how I can still apply it to the industry. And that's why I decided to, put my opinions down in a book. So you can, you know what I mean? You can always, be looking around. We see people every day who jump into cannabis thinking it's going to be this awesome, it's cool to sling weed. You know what I mean? And then they realize, how hard it really is, regulations, and then, dealing with patients and, customers and, all of these things. And they realize it's not that glamorous gig, whatsoever. And you do see them jump and ship. And then you see people like us, all of us on this screen, we're in it, but sometimes we got to look around and figure out, how we really want to be in it. And there is absolutely nothing saying that my family won't pivot again.
Oh, please. Not in the next 15 minutes can you say that.
So, so Sheena, with what you do, you interact and talk with countless women. And
Mm-hmm.
some are already well established, and some are what Angie is talking about is that that misconception that this is glamorous, and perhaps it is, but it's hard work. So, uh, so the so what do other women tell you? I mean, they might not use the word pivoting, but they talk
Mm-hmm.
to you about changes. So, what's your feedback on all of this?
Um, in regards to pivoting, it's funny, we actually did a panel and have a conversation for this year's conference called Planning the Pivot. Because I think that not just in this industry, but especially in this industry, pivoting is the inevitable part of your growth and scaling will require you to pivot. Um, and so I have been taking an approach to, or taking the stance to approach this in a way that is a positive. I see pivots as opportunities to shift,
Okay.
to find new ways to scale, grow, build. Um, and I think a lot of it, from what I've gathered through conversation and identifying pain points and working with women from all over the country in a multitude of sectors, one of the things that I can say is true is that necessity breeds invention. It's something my grandmother used to say a lot. Um, when you're forced to create or forced to develop, it's important that you know your why. Most of the women who have successfully pivoted understood what their why was and realized that their why was the destination, and what how they were executing was just the mode of transportation to get there. And pivots are just different modes of transportation required along that trip, right? So if I'm going on a road that's a little bumpy, I might need a different vehicle that has all four-wheel drive to get to my destination, but it doesn't change my why or my destination. It just changed how I get there, right? So when COVID happened, it caused people to panic because it forced them to change how they were getting to their why. And what happens is we lean so heavily on the transportation. We lean so heavily on the mode to get to the why that we forget that the real goal is the why. So I've noticed through my conversations and through my experience of working with women that pivots are usually coming at a point of growth or at a point of necessity. And if they aren't, especially in this industry when they're kind of unwarranted or unexpected, they still leave room for opportunity for you to implement new systems, opportunities, resources, ways for you to connect the dots to one, avoid these kinds of potholes in your road to your why again, but also to identify community and partners and develop partnerships and figure out ways to create symbiotic, non-extractive relationships that will allow you to pivot with ease, right? And allow you to find those different modes of transportation to get to your why a lot easier than you would have by yourself. So I would say trust the pivot, expect the pivot, lean into the pivot, and be thoughtful and intentful and bringing in community to help you navigate getting to that why.
Boy, that's going to be hard to that is going to be hard to follow, girl. You really nailed it.
Really.
So,
Well,
uh,
thank you.
hello to Shay. It is good to see you. So we only have Alex for 8 more minutes. Is that correct, or less? Is that correct? We've got you for 8 more minutes, Alex.
Yes.
Okay. What's your final thoughts then? And I know Sheena nailed it, so that's a harder one to follow. So give it your give it your best shot there.
I'll try what I can. But Sheena did say something that a quote when you said expect the unexpected, pretty much with life. That's my wife and I's favorite quote. That's kind of like something I live on. If you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. You know. So if you
Hmm.
just this industry, if you pay attention to everything that's going on around you, and you always have a plan to get by, pivoting won't hurt you because you're already thinking ahead of the game. Like playing chess, you're about 5, 6, 10 moves ahead of the game. So your pivot is just like slide out the way for a minute, then get back to what you need to do.
Okay, you're cutting up, Alex.
Oh no, can you hear me now?
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Okay, what's the last thing you heard so I know where to pick up at?
Oh no, God, that's a trick
Sliding. You were
question.
sliding.
I sl-
You were
so
saying something about short basketball player. I think you were referencing the basketball thing.
I mean height don't have nothing. You can be short, tall, whatever. It's all good. But sliding out the way, pivoting to the next season, knowing that you're
We lost you again. Um,
be aware of what's going on in your business. You know what I mean? Like know what's happening now and what's gonna happen in the future. Even though you can't see the future, but just kind of know that, have an idea. So when you make those pivot and you make those moves, it won't hurt you as much because you're expecting it. Expect the unexpected. Be ready to go. Have fun. Roll with it. Life things happen. Shit happens. Just be ready for it. You know. That's my final thought.
very good, very good. So, um, I'm going to ask Nancy and Liz, and then I'm going to Angela, and then to Shay, just so y'all can prepare. And Liz and Nancy, um, okay, I hate to, okay. So,
It's
as
okay. We're the seniors. We're the old people.
yeah,
It's okay.
so I
We know
didn't,
it.
You're just busy.
thank you, because, I know I'm old, so I am going to ask the older women what, and I see Angela and Angie thinking they're old. Um, but the
No,
three of
you got a ways to go.
yes, you all do. So, you have done, you ladies have done a major pivot, because most people in their 60s do not wake up one day and decide they're going to get into the cannabis industry. So
Well,
that's kind of a WTF. So, but how have you found that type of pivot? Has that been a shock to your system, or has it been a smooth transition?
it was a shock for me. It really was. Coming from corporate into cannabis, I've said it before, it's like walking into two different worlds. And it's a culture shock. And I have pivoted so many times, I could be a rockette. Um, no,
Oops.
but um, that's who we are. Life is all about change. Everything is changing all the time. And yeah, we have to pivot quite often, sometimes several times a day. And especially in this industry because it's moving so quickly. It's changing so quickly. Every day it's something else. So in this industry, it is far from glamorous. It's the hardest work I've done. It's the most fun work I've ever done. And pivoting, I think women too, we just tend to pivot because we are doing so many things. You're doing running here, but you have to be here, so you have to have a plan for this. It's just who we are, and it's change. It's changed throughout life, and you just gotta let the universe unfold as it should, and enjoy it and embrace it, but be ready for it.
Well, so Nancy, Deanna, and you not only made the pivot, but with some really interesting results. Because your product and two women has just taken off, and it appears to be organically. Uh, that's not only a huge pivot, but what that pivot created, the results. Talk about that.
Well, we've been pivoting so much. The point guard, the Celtics might be nervous. We just to pivot into the industry was one thing, but then once we were here, we have had so many, um, our head swirls. But like Alex said, we were prepared. Be prepared to pivot because we had guidance all along the way, and people told us to be prepared to pivot. And we had, like, initially did a survey before we came on the market. We surveyed our customers. We did a little market research. We asked about how people felt about tar in their lungs, due to cannabis. So that prepared us to be able to, we had feedback. And that feedback was, ruling out all these assumptions that we had initially. We had so many assumptions we were proved wrong, which, it required us to pivot, and we did. But I think being prepared to do so, knowing we went into it saying, okay, here we go, what are we going to have to do? And being open to